Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We have two terrific poets with us today, Maureen Owen and James Cushing. Maureen Owen, a previous coordinator at the St. Mark's Poetry Project and former editor-in-chief of Telephone Magazine and Telephone Books, is the author of 11 books, including Erosion's Pull from Coffee House Press, a finalist for the Colorado Book Award and the Balcones Poetry Prize. Her title, American Rush, Selected Poems, Talisman House, was a finalist for the LA Times Book Prize, and her work, A.E. Amelia Earhart, was a recipient of the prestigious Before Columbus American Book Award. She has taught at Naropa University, both on campus and in the low residency MFA Creative Writing Program, in Naropa's Summer Writing Program, and edited Naropa's online zine, Not Enough Night, through 19 issues. Her recent title, Edges of Water, is available from Chax Press. She has most recently had work in Positive Magnets, Threefold, and Hurricane Review. Just out from Hanging Loose Press is Let the Heart Hold Down the Breakage, or The Caregiver's Log. A recipient of grants from the NEA and the Foundation for Contemporary Arts, she can be found reading her work on the Penn Sound website. Here's a magnificent poet, Maureen Owen.
Thank you so much. What a great introduction. Since my book is just out, the Let the Heart Hold Down the Breakage or the Caregiver's Log, I'm gonna start with some poems from that. And it's kind of a hybrid prose and poetry. So the first piece is a prose piece that kind of sets up the manuscript. Caregiver's Log, 4/2/18. Before it began, my brother and I had chatted over the phone that I would come visit him and family, then take my mom, who'd spent January, February, and March at his warm California hilltop home, back up to her place in the high Sierras of Truckee. But some days later, when he picked me up at the train station, he announced with more than a little agitation that she wouldn't be able to continue living alone in her cabin. She had just gotten out of the hospital the day before and was not in good shape. I queried him about the cause of her hospitalization. We had celebrated her 95th birthday with a road trip to Monterey and Pacific Grove, where two close friends of hers lived on California's coast. They were hosts par excellence, and we'd had a fabulous time visiting them and celebrating Mom. That was the week of February 21st. I had just retired from my job on February 2nd and went home to continue setting up my new life with the plan that I would come in April after the snow let up in Truckee to help Mom get home and set up her house. Then my mom had some breathing issues in mid-March, and my brother had to take her for a short hospital stay. She'd been out of the hospital and feeling better when right before my arrival, she developed a cough and had to go back into the hospital for a couple of nights. Now he had just brought her home the day before my arrival. I wasn't sure how to respond to his announcement that she couldn't continue living alone. Well, let me see how she is, I offered. I felt blindsided by sternly delivered this open-ended news. When we arrived, we went directly down to see Mom. My brother, some years earlier, had built a lovely one-room living space for my mother's winter visits, down some moss-grown rustic steps on the lee side of the hill just past the garage. The main house sits on the hilltop and beams a California Shangri-La status of lush cactus and rosemary, lemon and lime trees, and a wide front room window that looks out over a greenery of eucalyptus, lawns, and wild bushes, horse pastures, a little town, a gambling casino, small farms, and further into a distant low range of mountain, beyond which lies the sea. The cabin sports a sweet wraparound porch and nestles under one of the huge oaks that protectively hover over the building. I do believe my brother built it for our mother, but it was christened the Hunter's Shack immediately and hung with several deer head trophies from my brother's hunting trips, and that my sister-in-law was delighted to get out of the house. The deer heads were many, and stuffed quail and wild geese soon joined the defunct menagerie. Because the cabin sat vacant for most of the year, it gradually became a storage space for surplus household items. My mother was seated on the couch at the far end of the room. The shutters were open, and a staggered light filtered a green glow through the oak leaves. A little kitchenette with a microwave and small fridge tucked beside a bar, wondrously constructed of big glass bricks, greeted to the left. And to the right, a pop-out glass display bay window, followed by a huge bed, then an armoire, and a wood-burning stove enclave of round gray river rocks with an electric heater. In the middle of the room, an oval table surrounded by 4 matching bulky wooden carved chairs claimed center stage. I hugged my mom, who was terribly thin, pallid as a sheet, and looked like she hadn't moved since my brother brought her home from the hospital the afternoon before. It was April 2nd. I moved into the Hunter's Shack to take care of her. Some of my titles are exceptionally long. This one's not too bad. There's a second way to measure the distance to galaxies. She's coughing, retching, deferring, wastebasket, easing into bed, stacking pillow pyramid, defying gravity, arranging fans, window airs, staging nightlight, clipped on lantern, bulbs aglow, holding hands, bedstand rosary, all subsiding. She, into ceasing, lifts her eyes and asks, "Do we have bacon?" The stations of her cross, her way of the cross, Via Dolorosa, her given name, Our Lady of Sorrows. 1, and these are Roman numerals, as in keeping with the stations of the cross. 1, riding her pony bareback to a one-room schoolhouse. 2, divorced, she wasn't allowed into heaven. 3, insisting she be driven to emergency at midnight, stomach attacks, feeling better even as we check in. 4, reciting poems she'd learned in high school, giving me intro to poesis, lyric to my ear. 5, us lugging oxygen canisters, lassos of tubing on train trips between Denver and Truckee. 6, our road trips navigating dusty hot summers, makeshift roadside stands, peaches, melons, avocados, crawling the grapevine up California's valley. 7, falling into the donut hole hit with the true cost of eloquence. 8, going with her beloved dad on farm tax inspector visits. He kept the ledgers for the county. Inviting the farmers into his car, he would simply let them disclose what they felt fair. 9, At Park Burger with Barbara and I, where she raged against the middle chairs, the light. 10. Depression, drought, dust storms, wrapping in a wet sheet to breathe, to sleep, freeing the horses, the livestock, to find their own water. 11. Dressing for church, putting on lipstick at the dresser's oval mirror farm bedroom. 12. Being able to name every farmer in every barn on the way to town who'd hanged himself during the Great Depression. 13. Dancing in a twirling full flower skirt. 14. Walking huts on California's racetrack fairgrounds circuit. Vallejo, Stockton, Bay Meadows, Sacramento. This title is a bit long. Above us, clouds flee southward. Grounded, our wind blows north. Her hair blows forward. Mine blows back. Mark a line on a milk-white plank table, anchoring a stasis of modality. Pillowed in fabric, swaying upward in gathers and drapes, arms emerging through buffon. Unbridled, she, unlike all others. The PT and OT girls arrive, lean, celestial. Tiny hoops of silver line the curves of their ears. Bracelets of pewter and turquoise. Muscle, skeletal, cardiac, fulcrums of movement. They parachute out of normal sky, self-winding, counting repetitions. She, palimpsest, once carried me, a babe in arms, an infant, to see man o' war. No other horse ever won such fame, her exaltation. And this is the title. Neither dozy moths nor their gauzy swarms, penumbra, bundling through shadow. Do you see it flying up there near the ceiling? No, what is it? The night bird up in the corner near the ceiling. 2 earrings dangle from a fork prong, fussy occupation, but up close, volant, somewhere above her bed, one of many shades arriving mute of darkened silk, her winged fabric, tortuous, short-sighted, drawn to cadence. Highlights vary, crisscross, unstable mishmash, no surface flat enough, off-kilter shadow, bending voices ignoring. What seethes within that plumage, sucks from the room all oxygen, vegetation thick as thunder, knots between us into some exotic vacuum. A nice short title. Sediments Looped Cordage. Unable to procure even an interview or any well-paying job, the sole support of her 3 children, my mother replaced her given name with just the first initial on her resume. Right away, she got a call. When she arrived for the job interview, the 2 fellows were taken aback. We didn't know you were a woman. We can't hire a woman for this work. It was a timekeeper's job at a missile base. My mother was sharp, intelligent, competent. They hired her. I suspect it didn't hurt. She was a knockout. And this is kind of a prose piece. Rub my back, rub my toes, rub my forehead. Caregiver's log, Saturday, 8/17/19. So hard to believe I arrived back in Truckee just over a week ago. A week of crisis, doctor visits, oxygen tanks, prescription pill changes, and lovely visits from neighbors and Mom's dear lifelong, Truckee-long friends. We went to the doctor early Wednesday. Doctor increased Lasix to twice a day, 40 milligrams each. Went over labs, oxygen use. I got in trouble for not giving Mom sufficient Lasix. I fearing for her kidneys, the doctor fearing for her heart. Thursday, Aaron came and cleaned, Meals on Wheels for Mom's lunch. I do laundry. Diana arrives to drive us to the hospital for Mom's lab work and stays to visit. Friday, our right-hand helper, Jackie, drives us to our appointment with the doctor to check kidney function. Kidneys holding their own, but when checking Mom's oxygen level, the oximeter won't register a reading. Finally, it appears to work, but the number is ridiculously low. This is not enough oxygen to sustain life, the doctor alarms. Jackie and I look at each other and then at Mom. Yet she lives, we proclaim in unison to the doctor. Dr. C says Mom has to go back into the hospital. Oh no, Jackie, Mom, and I shout in unison. We argue that the oximeter often doesn't function on Mom because of her atrial fibrillation. We all plead, Mom refusing to go back into the hospital. Finally, we are able to warm her fingers enough for a reading of 88, which is not great, but the doctor is willing to let her come home if we keep her on oxygen all the time and stay on the Lasix morning and evening, 40 milligrams. And we'll need to do labs before our next appointment on Monday to check her vitals again. Later at home, Julie, Capra, and Kettrick, best next-door neighbors for forever, drop in to visit. Loading the washing machine, I slowly checked them all. She would stuff her pockets with Kleenex, plaid shirt pokes, double cargo pants pouches, skinny jeans insets, hidden jacket pods. One night, belated doing laundry, I missed a pocket. Minuscule bits of flaky tissue clung, covering her clothes. Tiny snippets of ragged white stuck everywhere. I shook each apparel and out under the stars, tall pines huffing, puffed in their drowsiness, while I waved a wild snow of Kleenex into the August dark. And this is called Too Many in the Midwest. It was still called supper. It's libraries, what people won't lay bare to one another. She, phantasmagorical, only repertoire, blackened inventory, bosky conversations, left one tangled in bush. Gypsy to her girl gang, riding bareback, miles of Minnesota prairie and high grass ditches, coming home by moon, letting the horses find the way. Overhead, her galaxy, her Milky Way, stretching 100,000 light years across. Pam, quote, last time I hung out with her on Kentucky Derby Day, we were mad about the crap call on the winner. She was so funny. She was pissed. She cracked me up, unquote. Youngest of four, she the one of two sisters who learned to drive. If a machine part was needed, the men sent her to town to pick it up. she attired in a brother's hand-me-downs, straight black hair in a boy's cut. Once she wore a dress. The clerk stared, startled, wavering. Do you have a twin brother? The night she died, I came into the room, sat holding her face in my hands. Let's see. This is titled The Oxygen Generator Buffs, Plunges, a Sea Exhausted Falling Ashore. Where did this water come from? She suspicions at dinner, referring disdainfully to her water glass. It's our tap, I say. We have really fine tap water. Do you need another ice cube? I can't drink it. It tastes bad. It's the same water we drink all the time, I offer. Tastes bad. What else do we have? Is there any juice? Yes, I got you the cranberry blueberry juice. I'll have that. This title is a bit long. The queen is a triangle. The knight is a right angle. The bishop diagonal. Moving, the pawn is like the queen, only lesser, she said. The pines look woolly up November's air. She rolls her hand in crisp leaves under her chair. What are you looking for? My glove. You have both your gloves on. Oh, I thought I dropped one. And I'm just going to read a couple of newer pieces, not from that book. And this is titled, If You Are Diane DeMassa, Call Me, or Stein's Soirees. It was Matisse who insulted the cook over an omelet at Gertrude's on a Saturday. Some bush aside my porch resembles maidenhair leaves, but won't be indentations flowing over soft arms. Think of them, dining, lingering, chatter. I've read dark matter's cosmic filaments twirl invisible threads, huge twisting braids of motion, a rotating caboodle, moons, stars, galaxies, and clusters of continents. This is titled, Against had never consequences, such as one another, or I'll be planting barley. Plummy maroons, curving the arms, reaching to the knees. Below the snow, the cactus dreams, unlikely. We don't know what might be seen past the Chotskys into her window, sunlight flogging original tint, puckered through the blinds. A chair falls to the floor, spilling globs of yellow, milk blue, rosette, viridian saturated green of elbows hinge. And these last two are short little things. Hope of inflation. Woodland sage, maiden pink, snow in summer, prairie flax, blue mustard, red stem storksbill, bird eye speedwell, wild privet. And this is titled, a twisted cord embroidery. There's a jacket you can buy in any store that sells Dior for $10,500. I'm not making that up. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Your poetry is a real human story with compassion, concision, empathy, and it's so poignant. It's so touching. It's a lesson to all of us, and it's something we all have to deal with. And I can just see the loving relationship you had with your mom and your brother. And we have about a minute left. We could talk more about this. I was going to ask you about what you tell your students when you teach, but I think I would just take a minute to ask you. You were the coordinator at the St. Mark's Poetry Project years ago.
Yes.
How long did you do it? And what are a couple of your memories there? I went there in 1966. That was the first time I read publicly. Paul Blackburn was the one at that time. Could you just tell a little bit, take a minute or two about that and enlighten us about the project?
Sure. So I actually came to New York in 1968. So it was a couple of years later. And Ann Waldman was director then. I just started kind of going to the readings, hanging out at the church, putting out chairs, helping out, sweeping the floor after the readings. So we all did stuff like that. And then gradually I got the job of coordinator, which, gosh, how long? I did till about 1984, I guess. A long time. And I can't say enough good things about the St. Mark's Poetry Project, which I've always found to just be so open to new and young poets, or so generous. When I started my magazine, they loaned me or gave me use of the Gestetner machine, the mimeograph machine, and helped me, learn how to type stencils and then use the parish hall to put the whole magazine together with a lot of people. And it's just, I feel like it's, and I don't know, I've gone to hundreds of readings there. So I feel that's my education as well in poetry. I've heard so many wonderful poets there. It's just such an open, fantastic organization, so generous, and so varied, and so multicultural. It's a great place.
Well,
I highly recommend it to anyone.
Thank you for your contribution to poetry there to St. Mark's Church on the Bowery. The poetry readings there are the number one place to read in America. And I'll always be grateful for the people, who taught there at that particular time. Joel Oppenheimer was one of them.
Right.
Among others. Paul Blackburn would always carry his big old clunky tape recorder around and record all the readings.
Oh, right.
So thank you for that. And thank you for your magnificent reading. You just really touched me deeply. And it's a pleasure to have you back with us, Maureen. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much for inviting
me. James Cushing retired in 2020 after teaching literature and creative writing for 35 years in San Luis Obispo, California, where he was the community's poet laureate 2008 to 2010. While finishing a PhD at UC Irvine in the early 80s, he hosted a poetry radio program on KPFK FM in Los Angeles, giving early exposure to Wanda Coleman, Dennis Cooper, and Amy Gersler, among others. Cushing's most recent poetry collections include The Magician's Union, Solace, and the luminous Tangled Hologram, all from Cahuenga Press in Los Angeles. He lives in Hollywood with poet-painter Celeste Goyer, with whom he frequently collaborates. His daughter is the New York-based poet Iris Cushing. Here's a brilliant poet, James Cushing.
Thank you so much, Harry. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, MPTF, for hosting this wonderful program, and all the other wonderful programs that come out over this channel. And thank you, Maureen. I was not familiar with your work before this afternoon, but I wish to seek more of it out now, because what you write about what one might call the maternal sphere in your poems, especially as it concerns loss and care and various other complex issues. I found that very moving because it dovetails into some of my own work. So when Harry asked me to read here this afternoon, I thought, all right, a fairly small amount of time has passed since I read here last, and the listeners and viewers may have some familiarity with the things that I read. So why don't instead I read poems that I don't usually read from all of my previous books, not neglecting this most recent one, Tangled Hologram, which just came out, and which I've been giving readings from. I gave a reading from it last night at Loyola Marymount with Michelle Bidding on the same bill, which was the reading produced by Gail Ronsky and then Sarah McClay. And on Sunday, Harry, I know you'll appreciate this. On Sunday, I went out to Pasadena to Red Hen to hear Eloise Klein-Healy and Ron Kirchie. And Eloise is doing great. She's recovered essentially fully from this terrible thing that happened to her. And Ron Kirchie is just as fast and nimble and surprising and funny as ever. And I heard from him, and he saw a Tangled Hologram, and there was one poem that he particularly liked called "The Last Full Day." So that's the one that I'll begin with, and then set into motion by Maureen's beautiful reading. I think I'll read some mother poems, you might call them. Okay, from Telegram. This is called "The Last Full Day." I found my jewelry box in the dark. The jewels had lit candles in their mouths. I found your jewelry box in a brightly lit room. Tried to tell you, but could only spit out wax and lamp black. You may not be 100% in the multiplication gardens, but I can't find my hands without your app. Now, take a look out at the night as it gathers force. Every letter connects with its mate, resulting in a set of new words that mean what we became and remain in the eyes of others. Look at our words divide over and over, like a man with a stutter spitting out parts of his name. We get ready for the solstice with Sappho, Blake, and Rimbaud, never complaining when our shoes became trophies and spiders co-opted our nectarines. But summer arrives as a lost piece of chalk, and we're blank chalkboards nobody wants to write on. In my case, they taught me 2 years of religion, then cuffed my praying hands behind my back. Everyone saw how badly I needed to use my phone. It's the situation, not the character. The situation has a phone, but no bank account. You get it. The last full day from Tangled Hologram.
Nice.
So it was there was one. From my previous book, also published by Cahuenga Press, as all of them were published in 2018. This is called Solace, with a lovely cover photo by Holiday Mason. Yeah, let's see it. Here's a mother poem called A Bright Yellow Nap. My mother slept with the man who knew the names of each little cloud of smoke puffing from underneath her bedroom door. And he counted her coins at the end of her day. The sky was so abraded that when I found strands of it in my bed just after waking, I could never tell what it was. The summer had been evicted. Moon-illuminated pedestrians gathered to talk about their sons and their sons' hypnotists. So who is to be thanked for the way we all turned out? My hands are other people, and my legs and feet are animals, mating as they walk. A year has passed since fissures first showed. They're deeper, wider, bluer. Something adjusts the speed of the shuffle. We're low on milk, snacks, everything but leaves. I find my clothes and want. My floor disobeys when I tell it, stay beneath me. Lately, an older man wearing glasses and a robe peers out from behind a tropic print curtain, waiting for the chance to explain the meaning and the spelling of his name. He has 3 secrets he must split like logs, each with ideas that curve down behind them and back, each one leaving a sparkling green trail. And then he shades off into something relaxed and humane. The body of a fish. This is also from Solace. Mother, may I touch your secret hand again and tell you what I have been learning since you died? The heart of a child beats here in the chest of a full-grown man. There is no remedy for love. No food, no drink, no drug or potion can cure this sick heart's heaviness. The jealous heart rejects all formulas as truth stands before us. A store window full of expensive goods we must carry. You cannot re-give me life that I may mar it again. All your promises have become white fuzz, crackling in the bonfire of dreams. And those dreams, I cannot understand them. Their delights annoy me. Their hopes sadden my heart. The night leaves burn marks on my bed. I wish I had the body of a fish instead of this 10-cent puddle of tears. Let's have something a bit. Here's a love poem from a book called The Magician's Union. I'm very happy with this cover because I found it in an out of print children's encyclopedia.
Oh, cool.
And when I saw it, I said, I have to use that for something. So this was the something that I used it for. The Magicians Union poems, 2007 to 2012, again from Cahuenga Press. This this is called Poem Beginning with a Line from Sappho, and actually the first sentence of it is a somewhat altered combination based on several different translations of the Sappho fragment, part of one. That man sitting across from you, I shake when I see the two of you together. I cannot see or speak. Every midnight, I wish I were a dog so I could run across that field, baying, looking for animals, and then sleep nested in a cardboard carton, having buried my caved-in spoons. The hour slips into the bedroom in time for me to bless it, and a black wing leaves my hands trapped between my knees. I'm turning off my light. I'm ready for the kill. Did I say ready for the kill? I must have been out of my mind. The world's chilly. The night wraps my fingers with dew. You lie in bed, digesting the world, all radiance hidden in the shadows of leaves, and rise with tusks in your fists. The rules are wet and old. We still need places to put all this love. The dangling turquoise moon and the twinkling lights of the San Fernando Valley and the loneliness that waits there for everyone all leave us in their fiction without tears. It feels as though the moon were judging a cake we'd made from scratch.
Nice.
Thank you from the Magicians Union. Okay. All right. From a collection called Pinocchio's Revolution, with a cover photo by the master photographer George Woodman. This is a poem called A Chapter in the Book of Things I Fear. It makes a reference to Edith Hamilton's book about Greek mythology, which is very, very popular and was quite widely read and assigned at one time. A chapter in the Book of Things I Fear. A hummingbird mistook my mouth for a blossom. Hungry for pleasure, alert to chirps, I page through Edith Hamilton's mythology, hearing half-remembered high school voices, smelling broiled meat, roasted corn, gasoline, wet cotton. Rows of burning clocks floated above power lines, trading jokes. And I heard a snarl from the little dog inside me. At the sound of my snapping fingers, crows turned their faces to the wall and sulked. My car worked well enough to carry me to you, as though I were what an author were trying to convey in a book. But when I arrived under a lowering sky, everything and anything animal was covered in ice, and the man on the ceiling had turned to snow. I wanted to tell you how songs can sound like new information chasing us around with a tambourine. But I was just a slice of cake on a plate, closer to tears than laughter. Citizens stopped when they recognized me, turned and fled through the dry, sugared air, past dented aluminum buildings that reflected the lavender sky. All but a friend I used to know. His clothes and beard matched the gray of his car, and his shadow lay long and inky on the pavement. Puzzled by this scene, I try to warn him about the bomb he has planted in his garden, thinking it was some new type of seed. But I can only lick my upper lip while the afternoon shines like a sex truck waiting with its basic units of meaning, like another great novel you wanted me to read. You sleep tonight in a shed of feathers, smelling rain, crocuses, ripe grapes, and new luggage, listening to leaves explain why everything's moving slowly to the right. Okay. Time's good. The four poems that I've read so far are all what I suppose could be described as free verse. I mean, that is, there was no pre-existing literary form that I chose to use, or that chose me. When I wrote the poem, I let the poem find its own organic form, which is the way I usually work. But every now and then, and I've told my students this too, because I want them to know it, and to save them time to learn it before I learned it. That every now and then, if you find the right kind of pre-existing literary form, you can use it as a kind of magic key to open up certain imaginative doors that would not be opened up any other way. This involves the idea of thinking of it not as a constraint or as something put on you from within, but as a kind of shape through which I could go on and explain it, or I could read you an example of it. And I think it'd be better if I read you an example of it. This is from a book called Undercurrent Blues, which came out in 2005, and which collects work from roughly in this part of it, roughly 2001 to about 2004. And this is in the form of a pantoum, which involves not the repetition of sounds, but the repetitions of entire lines. And this is called, this is another poem with some maternal energy to it. This is called Organists Wanted. It happens multiple times throughout the play. The mother bores, the father scolds, the only child sits in the kitchen, playing his favorite records in his head. The mother bores the father, scolds him and the boy together this time. Playing his favorite records in his head, he finds a plausible way of escaping from him. And the boy, together this time, farther from his parents than ever before, finds a plausible way from escaping from that kitchen chair, those angry white appliances. Farther from his parents than ever before, he grows far from us as well. That kitchen chair, those angry white appliances, Kenmore oven, hot point refrigerator, wearing blender, won't say how he grows. Far from us as well, yet less than 90 seconds from now. The Kenmore oven, the hot point refrigerator, the wearing blender won't say how they expect us to take him home. Yet less than 90 seconds from now, the big white doors of the kitchen swoosh inward. They expect us to take him home, to build a special bedroom for him and tuck him in. Big white doors of the kitchen swoosh inward. Mother returns with a fresh bourbon and water to build. A special bedroom for him and tuck him in, she wants to say, but her anger prevents her. Silently, Mother returns with a fresh bourbon and water, makes another one for her husband, just back from Philadelphia. She wants to say, but her anger prevents her. Silently, I watch the clock, word by ticking word. I am a woman who makes another one from her husband, just back from Philadelphia, full of stories about vivid people drinking and talking. I watch the clock, word by ticking word. I am a woman. Who is her husband, the boy's father in the next room, full of stories about vivid people drinking and talking? That man has taken lives and saved them. Tonight, he knows he is her husband, the boy's father. In the next room, his son, his burden, starts seeing where he must come to live. This man has taken lives and saved them tonight. He knows. He knows his wife, knows how to handle his burden and his boy, his son. His burden starts seeing where he must come to live. Of course, he must come with us. We, who pace and mingle in the lobby, we know his wife, know how to handle his bourbon. And his boy, the only child, sits in the kitchen. Of course, he must come with us, we who pace and mingle in the lobby. It happens multiple times throughout the play. The pantoum form is what keeps it moving back and forth. I think I have time for another one. This is from the earliest of all my books that is still available. This is called The Length of an Afternoon, and came out in the year 1999. Yes, 1999. So this represents work that is by a man named James Cushing with my same social security number, but all of my cells have kind of, you know how it is. All the cells have regenerated a couple of times since then. So this is a poem by well, reading this, it simply illustrates the truth of Rambo's idea that I is another. So some other person named I wrote a poem called Pantomime, and I'd like to share it with you. And thank you again, Harry, and thank you again, Jennifer, and thank you again, Maureen, for a wonderful encounter with the spirit of poetry. Pantomime. On All Saints' Day, the lovers remove their human being costumes. Their wings, ragged from folding, please the air with curves. The dark-haired man dressed in red smiles at the thought of one secret. The blonde, dressed in tight black, whispers, "What are you thinking?" In less than half an hour, this scene too will have vanished. Nothing, not even her whisper, will be left behind. Yet our time seemed to turn and fall so slowly, so densely. Each evening loomed like a greasy mountain we had to climb with heavy packs. What made inventing wings so difficult was seeing 2 weeks into the future, which we did regularly with vast and complex accuracy. The past, now there we had problems. One morning, one closet pole snapped under our laughable garments. Next morning, Mozart rang from dawn to noon like a low angel, unhindered by our tries at flight. Tonight, your father and my mother ask if they may have this dance. Underneath them, we sit peeling oranges, licking our fingers, quizzing one another on the many names of love. Weary of our winglessness, we strap on our strange new bodies, squeeze our house keys' teeth for luck, go hunting for reasons to peep under curtains. We answer the RSVP the full moon left on the sill. Feeling faint with hunger, eyes red with allergies and love, we turn pumpkin colored like the sky.
Thank you, Jim, for
Thank you.
Very nice.
you astonish us with your vivid new images, and you touch us with your love for your mom and your dad too. And your poetry is always transformative. This has been a very enriching poetry reading for me, for both of you. And here's Jennifer Clymer, our director, with it, made this poetry hour possible. So let me just thank Jim and Maureen once again. And here's Jennifer.
What a wonderful hour. Thank you both so much. I loved that kind of slice through time that we were able to take a look at. Harry, tell us what's coming up next week, which is right before Halloween.
We have two wonderful writers next week, the wonderful poet Martha Ronk, who taught for many years at Occidental, and also David L. Ewan, who's probably the most recognized writer in the literary world for the LA Times. So it'll be a wonderful reading. So thank you very much.
I want to pause for just a second before we all say goodbye and point out how generous it is of Harry to thank us. This hour is entirely Harry's. Like, we don't do anything but provide the Zoom space. So all accolades, all applause, all thanks need to go to you, Harry.
You gave us the opportunity.
It is my pleasure, truly.